Welcome to your personalized deep dive. Today, we're going on this quest to understand how those websites you use every day are actually built.
Okay.
We're talking HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and even peeking into the world of databases. Think
Wow.
of it like we're getting a backstage pass to see how the internet really works.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
To guide us, we have excerpts from this book, Complete Website Development for Future Innovators.
Oh, cool.
It's like having a seasoned web developer right here with us,
Yeah.
breaking down these complex concepts.
Perfect. So let's start with the foundation of it all. HTML, the skeleton of every website. But it's more than just bones, right?
Right.
What's fascinating to me is how HTML, this seemingly simple language,
Yeah.
actually plays a huge role in how search engines like Google discover and rank websites.
Absolutely. So think of it this way. You know how frustrating it is when you search for something specific
Yeah.
and you get a bunch of irrelevant results?
Yeah.
That's often due to poor HTML structure on those websites. Search engines can't understand what the page is about, so they can't rank it properly.
Oh, interesting.
It's like trying to find a book in a library where all the books are just shoved in randomly.
Good luck with that. So, good HTML structure is like having a well-organized library where everything is easy to find.
Right.
But how does HTML actually work? What are these tags the book keeps mentioning?
Imagine you're writing a letter. You use headings to highlight important sections, paragraphs to organize your thoughts, and maybe even bullet points for lists.
Okay.
HTML tags are kind of like that. They tell the web browser how to display the content.
Oh, okay.
So you have tags for headings, paragraphs,
Yeah.
images, links, you name it.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture. So the tags provide structure and meaning to the content,
Yes.
making it both human and search engine friendly.
Exactly.
The book mentions that even small HTML details matter. Is it really that big of a deal?
You bet. Think of it like building a house. If you're sloppy with the foundation, even small cracks can eventually become big problems.
Oh, wow.
The same goes for HTML. Neglecting best practices, even for seemingly minor things, can have a ripple effect on your site's performance.
So attention to detail is key. Got it. But websites aren't just bare bones, they have style. That's where CSS comes in, right?
Exactly. If HTML is the skeleton, then CSS is the stylist.
Hmm.
The clothes, the makeup,
It-
the whole visual presentation.
Yeah.
It determines how everything looks, from the colors and fonts to the layout and positioning of elements on the page.
From the book, I learned that CSS uses something called selectors to target specific elements and then properties to dictate how they should look.
Right.
So it's like giving instructions to a designer, but with code.
Precisely. Imagine you have a website with a bunch of buttons.
Hmm.
You can use a CSS selector to target all those buttons, and then use properties to define their appearance.
Oh, cool.
Maybe you want them rounded with a blue background and white text. CSS gives you the power to do all of that.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting to me. CSS isn't just about making things look pretty. It also plays a crucial role in making websites work seamlessly on different devices, like phones and tablets.
Yes.
The book calls this responsive design, and it's become so important in today's mobile world.
Think about how much you use your phone to browse the web.
Oh, all the time.
Responsive design is what makes those websites usable, even on a small screen. Imagine trying to navigate a website designed for a desktop computer on your tiny phone screen. It
Yeah.
would be a nightmare. CSS media queries allow developers to create different layouts depending on the screen size,
Okay.
ensuring a smooth user experience no matter what device you're using.
So CSS helps websites adapt to our increasingly mobile world.
That's pretty cool. And hold on, there's even more.
Mm-hmm.
CSS can also do animations and visual effects, like making buttons change color when you hover over them.
That's right. Those little details can make a website feel more interactive and engaging.
It's amazing how far CSS has come, from simply styling static pages to creating dynamic and visually appealing experiences.
Okay, we've got the structure with HTML, the style with CSS,
Right.
but websites need to do things. They need to be interactive. That's where JavaScript comes in, right?
You got it. JavaScript is the language that brings websites to life.
Yeah.
It's what allows users to interact with the page, whether it's clicking a button, filling out a form, or playing a game.
So it's the language that makes websites respond to our actions. That's incredible. But I have to admit, this concept of JavaScript objects and arrays always seemed a bit mysterious to me.
Yeah.
Can you demystify it for us?
Think of objects like those little containers you use to organize your stuff,
Mm-hmm.
with separate compartments for different items.
Okay.
Each compartment has a label, so you know exactly what's inside.
Gotcha.
In JavaScript, those labels are called properties, and they hold different types of information like text, numbers, or even functions.
Okay, so objects are like well-organized containers for data. What about arrays? They seem a bit simpler.
Imagine a row of lockers in a school.
Okay.
Each locker has a number, and inside each locker you can store different things.
Yeah.
JavaScript uses arrays to store collections of data, whether it's a list of names, a set of numbers, or even a combination of different data types.
So both objects and arrays are essentially ways to organize and manage data within a website.
Yes,
And that's what allows for all the cool interactivity we see online.
absolutely. Think about your favorite social media app. All those profiles, posts, and comments are organized using objects behind the scenes,
Wow.
making it easy for the app to display and manage all that data. And those lists of friends or followers,
Yeah.
that's where arrays come in handy.
Wow, so much is happening behind the scenes that we don't even realize. The book has a really interesting example of how JavaScript is used for form validation.
Yeah.
Those online forms where you enter your name, email, and all that information.
Yeah, that's a great example of how JavaScript can improve the user experience. Imagine filling out a long form, hitting submit, and then getting an error message because you forgot to fill in a required field.
The worst.
JavaScript can check for those errors in real time as you're typing and alert you before you submit the form.
So it's like having a meticulous assistant double-checking your work as you go along. Saves a lot of hassle. Okay, we've covered HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, the front-end trifecta that makes websites look good and function smoothly.
Right.
But what about the data that powers those websites, all the information behind the scenes?
Yes.
That's where databases come in, right?
Exactly. Databases are like the brains behind many websites, storing and organizing all the information that makes those sites work.
Yeah.
Think product catalogs, user accounts, online orders, and so much more.
Okay, so it's not just about pretty websites anymore.
Not at all. Databases are all about managing information effectively.
Oh.
They're essential for any website that needs to store and retrieve data efficiently.
The book mentions different types of databases, but focuses on relational databases. What makes those special?
Well, relational databases are structured in a way that makes it easy to organize and link related pieces of information.
Okay.
Think of it like a well-organized filing system, where everything has its place and connections to related files are clearly marked.
And these relationships, that's what makes them so powerful. It's not just about storing data,
Right.
but also about understanding how different pieces of information relate to each other.
Exactly. Relational databases are incredibly powerful for managing complex data sets.
Okay.
Think of an online store.
Yeah.
Have products, customers, orders, payments, and all sorts of information that needs to be interconnected.
Right.
Relational databases make it easy to model those relationships and manage the data effectively.
So it's like a giant interconnected web of information. I'm starting to see the appeal, but to be honest, all this talk about databases is making me a bit thirsty for knowledge.
Yeah,
Maybe we should take a quick sip and continue our deep dive in part 2.
that's a good plan. We've only scratched the surface of databases, and there's much more to explore.
Great, we'll be right back. Welcome back to our deep dive. I'm still reeling from how much goes into building a website. Databases were definitely a new concept for me,
Yeah.
but they sound pretty important.
They really are the backbone of so much of what we do online.
Right.
Imagine trying to run an e-commerce site
Yeah.
or a social media platform without a way to store and manage all that user data and content.
Oh my God.
It'd be chaos.
No kidding. So before the break, we were talking about how relational databases are like well-organized filing systems. But the book also dives into this concept of database normalization.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, it sounds a bit intimidating.
It's a big word, but the idea behind it is actually quite simple.
Okay.
Normalization is all about organizing the data within a database
Yeah.
to avoid redundancy and ensure data integrity.
Okay.
Think of it like tidying up your closet.
Okay.
Once everything has its place and is properly labeled, it's much easier to find what you need,
Right.
and there's less clutter.
Okay, I can get behind the idea of a tidy data closet, but how do we actually achieve this normalization?
Right.
The book mentions something called normal forms, which sound a bit like levels in a video game.
That's a fun way to think about it.
Yeah.
And you're right, there are several levels,
Okay.
each addressing a specific type of data redundancy or dependency.
Okay.
The first level, or first normal form, 1NF, is all about making sure your data is atomic.
Atomic, like tiny, indivisible particles.
Exactly. In database terms, atomic means that each cell in a table should hold only one value,
Okay.
and those values should be indivisible.
Okay.
For example, if you have a table for storing customer contact information,
Right.
you wouldn't want to cram multiple phone numbers into a single cell.
So no comma-separated lists.
Right.
Each piece of information needs its own designated space.
Exactly.
That makes sense. So what's the next level in our normalization game?
Next up is second normal form, 2NF. And this one builds upon the concept of primary keys, those unique identifiers we talked about earlier.
Okay.
2NF is all about ensuring that all the non-key columns in a table are fully dependent on the entire primary key.
Meaning?
Let's say you're building a database for a library.
Okay.
You have a table for books.
Right.
And each book has a unique ID as its primary key.
Okay.
Now imagine you also have a column for the author's name in that same table.
Right.
That would be a violation of 2NF
Yeah.
because the author's name doesn't depend on the book's ID.
Okay.
It depends on the author's ID.
So the author's name should be in a separate table for authors.
Yes.
Linked to the book's table through a relationship.
Exactly.
I see how that makes the data more organized and avoids unnecessary repetition.
Right.
All right, we've got atomic data and dependencies figured out.
Yeah.
What's level 3?
Level 3 is third normal form, 3NF.
Okay.
And this one tackles something called transitive dependency.
Sounds a bit complex.
It's really just about making sure that non-key columns don't depend on other non-key columns.
Well.
Let's go back to our library example.
All right.
Imagine you have a table for students,
Okay.
and it includes columns for their ID, the course they're enrolled in, and the instructor's name.
Okay.
If the instructor's name is determined by the course, not
Mhm.
the student, that's a transitive dependency.
So the instructor's name shouldn't be in the student's table at all.
Right.
It should be in the course's table. Right.
Exactly. 3NF helps us refine those relationships and ensure that each piece of data is stored in the most appropriate table.
Okay, I'm starting to see how normalization is all about creating a well-structured and efficient database.
Right.
But can you take this normalization thing too far?
That's a great question.
Is there a point where it becomes more trouble than it's worth?
While normalization is generally a good thing,
Yeah.
there are situations where it might be beneficial to denormalize your database.
Denormalize. So like unnormalize?
Yeah.
That seems counterintuitive.
It might seem that way,
Yeah.
but hear me out.
Okay.
Denormalization is about strategically combining tables or duplicating data to improve performance,
Okay.
particularly in read-heavy applications.
So if you're constantly retrieving data from the database,
Right.
denormalization might make things faster.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Think of it like keeping a frequently used item within arm's reach
Yeah.
instead of tucked away in a drawer.
Yeah.
It's more convenient, even if it means sacrificing a bit of organization.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I'm guessing denormalization is something you do only in very specific situations when
Yeah.
performance is absolutely critical.
You got it. It's a trade-off between efficiency and data integrity,
Right.
and it's not a decision to be taken lightly.
Okay, so far we've explored the front end of websites with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Right.
Then we dove into the back end world of databases,
Yeah.
exploring how they're structured and normalized.
Yeah.
I feel like we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
Yeah.
And all of this knowledge is about to come together beautifully as we explore how websites and databases work together seamlessly to deliver dynamic, data-driven experiences.
That's what I'm most excited about. We've learned how to build a beautiful and functional website,
Right.
and we've peeked into the world of data management.
Yes.
Now it's time to see how those two worlds collide.
Exactly.
But I think we'll have to save that exciting revelation for part 3 of our deep dive.
I agree. Buckle up, because things are about to get really interesting as we unravel the magic behind dynamic websites.
Welcome back to our deep dive. I'm ready to see how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together.
Right.
We've explored the front-end world of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript,
Yeah.
and we've ventured into the back-end realm of databases.
Yes.
Now it's time to connect those dots and
Sure.
understand how websites actually interact with those massive stores of data.
It's like watching a symphony orchestra come together,
Oh, cool.
each instrument playing its part to create this harmonious whole.
I like that.
We've got the front end creating the user interface, the database holding all the information,
Yeah.
and now we need a conductor to bring it all together.
And according to our trusty guide, Complete Website Development for Future Innovators, the conductor in this case is often PHP.
Right.
What exactly is PHP, and what role does it play in this grand symphony?
PHP is a server-side scripting language, which means it runs on the web server,
Okay,
not in the user's browser like JavaScript.
gotcha.
Think of it as middleman between the website's front end and the database.
So when I visit a website that uses PHP,
Yeah.
what's happening behind the scenes?
Let's say you're browsing an online store that uses PHP and a database to manage its products.
Okay.
When you click on a product to view its details,
Yeah.
your browser sends a request to the web server.
Okay.
The server then calls upon PHP to fetch the product information from the database.
Oh, okay.
PHP retrieves the product name, description, price, images, maybe even customer reviews,
Hmm.
and then neatly packages all that data and sends it back to your browser to be displayed.
Ah, so PHP is like a personal shopper for the website,
Right.
retrieving the requested information from the database and presenting it beautifully to the user.
That's a great way to put it. PHP is essential for creating dynamic websites that can respond to user actions and deliver personalized content.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The book also gives the example of a login system built with PHP and a database.
Right?
Can you walk me through how that works?
Sure. When you create an account on a website, your username, password, and other personal information are usually stored securely in a database.
Yeah,
When you try to log in,
right.
PHP takes your submitted credentials,
Okay.
compares them to the data in the database,
Gotcha.
and if there's a match, grants you access to the site.
So PHP is acting as the security guard,
Right.
verifying our identity against the database records.
Exactly.
I'm starting to see how crucial PHP is for things like e-commerce, social media, and any website that requires user accounts and personalized experiences.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
It's amazing how much we rely on these behind-the-scenes technologies without even realizing it.
This entire deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
Yeah.
We've gone from the basic building blocks of HTML to the intricate world of databases.
Right.
And now we see how PHP orchestrates the flow of data between those two realms.
Like we've gained a superpower.
I know, right?
The ability to see beyond the surface of websites
Yeah.
and understand the complex interplay of technologies that make them work.
And to think, we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to learn and explore in the world of web development.
That's the beauty of it. Technology is constantly evolving,
Yeah,
and there are always new challenges to solve and new possibilities to create.
right.
This deep dive has given you a solid foundation,
Yeah.
and I encourage you to keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep learning.
Who knows? Maybe one day we'll be building our own websites and web applications,
I hope so.
powered by all the knowledge we've gained on this journey. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of websites and databases,
Right.
what final thoughts do you want to leave our listeners with?
I'll leave you with one final thought to ponder.
Okay.
What will the future of website development and databases look like?
Ooh, that's a good word.
What new technologies will emerge, and how will they shape the way we interact with the online world?
That's a fascinating question. The internet is constantly evolving, and it's exciting to imagine the possibilities that lie ahead.
I agree.
Until next time, keep diving deep.